Welcome to the Cycling Performance Podcast, presented by Team EF Coaching, where we explore the intersection between the science of sport and the art of balance, human behavior, and sustainable performance on and off the bike. Good afternoon, morning, wherever you are in the world, internet monkeys, and welcome to another episode of the Cycling Performance Podcast. I'm Nathan Haas, co-director at Team EF Coaching, and the co-host is my other co-director,
Colby Pierce. How's it going?
Just for everyone's interest, who's actually watching on YouTube, those who are listening on traditional podcast platforms cannot see this, but we had a little technological issue this morning where one of our mic pickups is not working. So we are going to be awkwardly handing this off to each other. It's like the conch in The Lord of the Flies. It's like, if you are not holding the microphone, thou shalt not speak. But today we have a very special guest and somebody who is actually one of my best friends through my cycling journey and just life. We've known each other for a long time. It's Professor David Spindler. His journey is far too much for me to be able to share without getting a lot of inaccuracies and inconsistencies. So I'm going to hand it over to Professor Dr. David Caddy Spindler to explain what all of those different little things with his name mean.
Hello, everybody in the internet world. I'm David Spindler. I'm a neuroscientist and psychology researcher, and so what I do is I work with how your brain chemistry and your neural pathways work with the central nervous system to produce performance. I do that. I'm very lucky to be able to do that, or actually luck's got not much to do with it. I'm very fortunate to be able to work with some of the best athletes in the world across lots of different sporting fields, Formula One, MotoGP, World Triathlon, cycling as well. I've worked with several cycling teams over the years, and Nathan Haas happened to be one of my first clients.
Yeah, so I was a client second, but we were actually friends long before
exactly.
that.
100%, yes. Yeah.
You know, we'll get more stuck into your career, your PhD subject, and a lot of the really interesting outcomes that happen from your methodology of work, if we can call it that. But I think what makes things here a little bit more special is actually your journey on how you came to here. And Colby and I always like to talk in archetypes. We find the concept of archetypes to be a very interesting way and useful metaphor to explain the person behind the methodology or the person behind what they do. And I would call you the archetype of the wounded healer, somebody that has had a very checkered and interesting past, to say the least. So I'll let you tell a little bit about your story and share as much as you're happy to, but I would definitely love you to include a little bit about the Batman story.
Okay, so where that comes from is I have bipolar disorder, and I was diagnosed with that at 18 years old. And I've spent, I actually haven't worked it out, so somewhere between a year and a half in institutions, helping me help myself. And one of the first reasons when I knew that I had bipolar disorder was I ran down the main street of my hometown of Kiama, New South Wales, Australia, in a pair of Y-front underpants and a sheet wrapped around my neck, knowing I was Batman. There was no thinking behind that. I was 100% Batman, and got taken away to help myself for a little while there. And so that's a part of it. And then I was a golfer for a little while, worked on the PGA Tour for a bit, and sort of realised that I was stuck in a hotel room. I was hurting quite bad, sort of mental health wise, and my boss at the time knew I was, picked me up from the hotel room in Miami, flew me on his private jet to Los Angeles, who then put me on a Qantas flight from Los Angeles to Sydney, Australia. And yeah, so that's another one of the stories. But yeah, so my mental health has been quite difficult and been rough for me. I'm now 51. I haven't had an episode in, how old's Luca? 13 years. And my daughter is my youngest. And yeah, so I've been fairly stable for a fairly significant amount of time, and that's only because I've prioritised my mental health more than I ever have in my life. Yeah, so there you go. There's a little bit of it.
Yeah, that's a a short part of the history and the story that I know, as one of your close friends.
Yeah.
But something that I've always sort of been taught through Colby, who's been one of my other mentors, throughout my career, was the concept that for a tree to grow to heaven, it has to have roots to hell. And those roots certainly, have enriched your, passion for, first of all, psychology. But then there was a shift in your understanding of the usefulness of psychology when you started a new passion for neurology. And I would love to hear what you've got to say about how, neurology actually controls, more of our emotional state than we give it credit for.
The brain and body are one performance system. They don't get delivered as that very much. In endurance sport, everyone thinks that the guy that's the strongest wins or whatever. However, your brain is the one that drives all of those functions. It drives the neural pathway towards that muscle firing. It drives all of the emotions, your thoughts, behaviours and actions in and around any state of being, pretty much. And so I did an undergraduate psychology degree and realised it was all placebo, pretty much. It's how you tell how an athlete perceives what they're doing. And I understood that there was underlying mechanisms, or I was interested in the underlying mechanisms of why my thoughts, behaviours and actions were delivering the way that they were delivering. And it wasn't just a person telling me I could set goals or change my thought pattern to then change the way that I was feeling. That wasn't enough for me. And it's enough for a lot of people, and that's not what I'm saying. However, I had an itch that I really needed to scratch, which was, why was my brain and so why was I neurodivergent or different than somebody else in regards to my neurochemistry and neuroanatomy, and why was that delivering two very, very distinct highs and lows? And that led me to, so my family's always been in cycling, and I know a lot of the older Australian professionals. Bradley McGee's really close with, I'm close with Bradley McGee, and we were talking one day, and he was talking about how some people make decisions that are far better at decision making under physiological load than others. And it got me thinking of what that means. And that's not sports psychology that does that. It is, sports psychology can change that, but that's not the driving mechanism of why people change and why people are either poorer at decision making or better at decision making. And that's irregardless of a physiological capability. So that's kind of where that came from. It's where it's born out of. Yeah.
So you talk about decision making under load, which to my greatest understanding is the main subject matter of your PhD. For the listeners now, David's a professor at Loughborough University, which is...
No, not at Loughborough. I'm at King Saud University in Saudi Arabia at the moment.
Oh, so, okay.
Yep.
So that's changed.
Changed.
But David, created, delivered, performed an exceptional PhD, which had some pretty fundamental changes in the way that we understand how the brain works under physiological load, and specifically for decisions. So I would love you to kind of explain what that means and how you got to the final outcome and what they were.
It's quite a long time ago. With PhDs, you tried to forget them as fast as possible because they've taken so much of your life and years off your life. But first of all, there was a systematic review of all the literature of what professional cycling or elite cycling, what that looked like. And then we found that it was poor. The research is poor in elite cycling, especially in the psychology of elite cycling. There was very, very few studies, and even less that were actually worth reading. From that, we saw that again, so because there was a really a poor delivery on that, the next study was what was elite cycling, what was the psychology of elite cycling was the next study, which I did a heap of interviews and talked to friends and lots of different people, Nathan being one of them, of what professional cycling actually was. What did they think about? What decisions were made? How they made decisions? What constitute a pacing decision? And then from that was one of the biggest deciders of overall performance, psychology-wise, was decision-making and what that looked like. So I did a little bit more reading and research, and the decision-making part of the brain, I found that to be the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, kind of here, if you're looking online, sort of above your right eye and halfway to your ear. It's a really small section of the prefrontal cortex that lights up when you either make the decision to change pace or change anything, pretty much, in endurance activity. And one of the things that actually hits that, to the best of our knowledge, was the Stroop task, and lots of people would have seen the Stroop task. There's two different variations of it. One of it being with the colour will be on the screen. A colour will be on the screen written in a colour as well. So it could be red written in the colour green, where the answer there would be green, which takes more time than if it was red and the colour would be red. And there's 4 or 5 different options there that changes. So your ability to inhibit your initial reaction, which is to read the word first, because that's what you're trained to do, it actually hits exactly the same spot. And that was the proxy measure for decision making that we used across a few studies. And one of the big things was that glucose and availability of glucose was a really big marker of that. And my theory, what we're doing some studies on now, is the added carbohydrate intake that we're now seeing in endurance activity is a lot of the extra benefit of that. Actually, a brain working brain more efficiently and efficient firing of muscles. Not only you have more energy to do that, is are we getting a more capacity, a brain capacity to be able to deliver? And it seems to be yes at the moment. Yeah, so it's an added benefit of however many carbohydrates that you want to put into yourself to a point.
Yeah. And the other part of the study was found that by training specifically for it, you can increase your cognitive capacity under load.
Yes.
So
yes.
Can you explain?
Sorry, yes.
Can you explain what that means?
So what we've found since is that the actual game itself does absolutely nothing whatsoever. And since that study, so brain training itself has zero benefit. What you need to do while doing it is what's called self-regulation, is your ability to be able to understand where your thought processes are and how and why you're doing, and how you control your behaviours and actions while you're doing the task, because they're doing exactly It's actually hitting the exact area that you need to when you make those decisions. But it's a self-regulation piece that's actually far more important than actually doing the game. So why you're feeling the way you're feeling, understanding where you are in space and time is really super important, because that extends time to exhaustion. Yeah. Hopefully I've told that well enough, I think.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think so. But this is Colby's first time hearing it. So what do you make of that?
Yeah. Thank you. That's fascinating. So maybe we can zoom out for a second to like 100,000-foot view and give people a bit more context, because I think often in my experience, when I work with athletes and I start to explain the nature of the nervous system, they actually don't always quite understand really what we're talking about. So maybe it would be helpful if you offered your simple definition of the function of the nervous system. Like you mentioned, it's a driver, it's a control mechanism, right? One of the terms that I've learned recently that have really resonated with me was muscles are slaves to nerves, right? The implication being that if you have a dysfunctional movement pattern, you're having trouble firing your glutes or whatever, then if you just train the glutes, that they'll turn on or they'll start to respond to that load. And there's some truth to that, but there's a deeper mechanism at play. But also you alluded to the fact that the nervous system drives hormones, it drives mental state, it drives the ability to focus. And of course it controls all the autonomic functions like heart rate and digestion and the temperature of your feet and hormone levels, etc. So what would you say is the function of the nervous system from the biggest zoom out?
You've absolutely nailed it. You've actually nailed it. That's exactly what it does. Yeah, it is the overarching mechanism that creates life. It comes from, it's how you feel, it's how you breathe, it's how you see. It creates every single function that you do daily. It's how you deliver that was perfect.
Oh, thank you.
So yeah, it's really good. Probably better than I could have. But yeah, it was great.
Thank you. So as an extension of that definition or context or presupposition that the nervous system regulates life, I think that's the term you just used, right? It governs life, or maybe governs isn't the right word, but it regulates all functions that have to do with life. The implication for me is that if we're trying to preserve life or express life, we are also protecting against death.
Yes.
So how I think about the nervous system is in the context of safety, which sounds like a weird thing for a cyclist to think about. Like we might think about safety if we're rocketing down a descent, and we're going 80 Ks an hour, then definitely safety is on the brain, right? Or when you approach a really tight switchback and there's a little bit of sand in the middle, you're thinking, safety, right? But I would offer that the nervous system is always monitoring the environment for safety. Like right now, my feet are on the floor and my nervous system is in touch with the sensation of pressure, the sensation of temperature. And if those were to change, it would react to preserve life. And if a gun were to go off in the parking lot outside this window,
We are in the USA.
We are, but without getting flipped, no politics. We're not at the dinner table. Like before we even had conscious thought, we would have an adrenaline hit, a cortisol hit, a blood sugar and pressure spike. Pupils would dilate. Red light posture would be assumed, right? This would be before we even really processed what happened. Like our nervous system is that fast. So having an understanding in how our nervous system feels safe in the world, or feels safe in the middle of a peloton, or in particular feels safe when it's smart enough to know that in terms of oxygen delivery, we are writing checks that we're going to have to cash in a couple of minutes, right? That's a system, or it's a state of sympathetic stress. And the harder you go, the higher that level of sympathetic stress rises and rises. And so when I think about the landscape of your work, I'm thinking about how someone is sort of processing that level of aerobic stress. And then on top of that, they have to stack complex decision making, like
Sure.
how many gels should I eat or when, or do I follow that attack or not? Or how do I negotiate this corner? Or here comes a barrier because I'm in a cyclocross race. How do I get off my bike without tripping and falling on my face? Right.
Yes. But also from a pacing point of view, can I go this fast until the end? Right. So
yes,
that as soon as your brain thinks that it can't do it, it will give you an adrenaline spike. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that self-regulation piece that we were talking about before. That's where that comes in to play. Then it's super important to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as you get any adrenaline spike, what happens is that vasodilation of the lower limbs happens because it's a fight or flight response, right? Straight away. And that's only because your brain has gone into safety mode saying, I can't do this. I don't think I have the capability to be able to go X amount of watts for X amount of time, for X amount of, on this path. Duration, path, outcome. And the outcome is I can't do it, right? So as soon as that happens, the duration and pathing has to change.
Yeah. Either the intensity has to go down or or some other way to solve the equation. Yeah.
Or the time frame needs to go longer or shorter.
Yes.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think people consistently underestimate the teleological impact of our reality on the nervous system. And this is why VO2 tests in a lab never have made sense to me. There's a certain athlete who can do those, but really it's super obtuse because in like the normal physical environment of a bike race, you have a race, it's 200K long and you've got 3 KOMs and the third KOM is 6K long. So you get to the bottom of the climb and 6 kilometers for me on a 8% grade is going to take, however many minutes. And now, of course, we have head units that, flash to a screen and it shows you the segment and it even gives you a countdown. Like you've got 22 minutes left, you've got 20 minutes left. And that gives you that teleological or that time-based landscape to understand, I'm going this hard. Can I do this for another 18 minutes? And you as an athlete, that's really what training I think is about, is learning how the body negotiates all those variables and making that calculation. And if you look down and you're going, I've been doing 380 watts for 5 minutes already, and I've got another 20 minutes to go. My experience is that I can't maintain that pace. Then you're gonna regulate and dial the throttle back a little bit, relax a little bit, hopefully. Or your
brain's gonna tell you regardless, from a safety mechanism point of view, that I don't think I can do this, and then you have to make the self-regulatory decision of whether I can or not.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So that's the decision that's made. Yeah. Sorry.
So for me, the nervous system is one of the most aptly named systems on Earth, right?
Yeah.
It's exceptionally nervous because it's doing exactly what its job is to be nervous because it considers everything to be a threat. So how do we change that? What's the best way to let me get to one of my biggest anguishes in I think it's sport at the moment, but we can keep it specific to cycling, even though it's a very general feeling I have, is this alpha bro approach to training, which is to say, I know I'm 380 watts for 5 minutes so far into this climb, and there's another 25 minutes to go. What I need to do is I actually need to pound the shit out of myself and tell my nervous system it's wrong, right? We can't do that. It is the key driver. Like we keep saying, it's the driver of life, or driver to protect life. So can you tell me from your perspective, what are the pitfalls from this sort of like alpha bro all in? Do you have any other adjectives or ways of kind of explaining that?
Who's going to carry the boats?
I would say it's David Goggins' mindset, simply put, right? It's like more is always better, no pain, no gain. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I would describe it.
So it's unsustainable. And like where that came from is from a Navy SEAL based thing in the first place, right? And it's really easy. It's one of those things that's easy to sink your teeth into. Go, oh yeah, I can do that, right? Mm-hmm. What Goggins doesn't tell you is that Navy SEAL thing is actually to break people.
Yep.
Right?
That's the whole point.
So, yeah, it's the whole point of it, right? So, in the first place, what ends up happening is an excessive reliance on willpower in general, right? I can do this. You ignore the signs of overtraining. You train through illness. You neglect recovery. You fail to adjust plans when you're due to fatigue. Why? Because apparently you're not supposed to get tired, and apparently your brain is wrong in telling you, like the signs of saying, it's time to shut it down a fraction, right? You don't have to do it all the time. There's very, very few times in your life where you need that. The David Goggins actual lifestyle, very, very few, right? So not only that, when it really comes down to it, like elite endurance performance is actually not about tolerating suffering. It's not just simply about that. It's not about tolerating. It's about accurately regulating your effort over long periods.
Yes.
Right. Suffering is a part of it. That's no one's saying that that's not the case. But an athlete who pushes harder is often outperformed by an athlete who knows when to hold back and use and utilize their power system when they need it. Right.
Yes. Thank you.
So from that part, and from a neuroscience point of view, that reflects the David Goggins point of view reflects on really poor interoceptive awareness, the brain's ability to regulate or to accurately interpret what your physiological signals are, right? Because what you're trying is overpower them and continue to overpower them, right?
Yeah.
And if we look at it from it's the opposite of what you need. But even from a Tour de France point of view, there's only an athlete may only need to do that once in 3 weeks. Once. And they may only get in trouble from a yellow jersey point of view once in the entire 3 weeks. And it's my job to be able to regulate their emotions and give them more cognitive capacity for that one thing, one time only.
Yep.
Right.
So that when they do, they don't.
When
fall
they
to pieces,
do, they have capacity to do it because they haven't been hammering the whole time. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's why breakaways go.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So
I think the original, the OG of David Goggin mindset in the cycling world has got to be Charlie Walsh, right? I mean, he just took riders and threw them through a cycling Navy SEALs program, just gave them like 40 hours a week, and just last man standing those were the guys who made the national team. And it was a savage, brutal tactic. And it found the freak of freaks. It found the David Goggins who could do that, the Navy SEALs who could survive the program. And they were prolific winners, but it was just a wasteland of athletes in the wake. People who quit the sport. Yeah.
So Brad said to me in the past, it was like throwing heads against a wall, and I was the one that didn't break.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all of my friends I could look around every single afternoon, and all of my friends would be whites and yellows all over the ground.
Yeah, I mean, there goes the whole metaphor. If you've got to break a few eggs to make the omelette. Unfortunately, there was no heat pad on the floor, and it just ended up being egg slurry.
Yeah, but also, if you're going to make the omelette, they're broken people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you actually want safe, controlled, and really, really sturdy eggs. You don't want to make an omelette.
Right.
It's a ridiculous metaphor.
I've been around, so has Colby, a plethora of athletes who are essentially very broken people. And they don't understand, they no longer understand the why behind why they are in competition. And I see it always breaks my heart when I see an athlete win a race, especially a big one, and they look more relieved than happy. That to me has always been something that's really hurt my soul, because it means that they don't understand the reason why they're trying to win. Relief.
Well, they've forgotten it, right? It's gone from a sport where they've loved. They've forgotten the reason why they started.
Yeah.
Right. So, but
it's like military conditioning, though, right? I mean, you actually have to break the soldiers through these tests so that they can go into war and not actually have their human emotions guide them, and now their North Star is what they've been trained to do.
It's brainwashing.
And it's brainwashing. And I think that this is, but this comes back and kind of leads into my next question, which is like this brainwashing is also creating a negative soup of brain chemicals. So what I would like to ask you now is, we've kind of hit the point in turn talking about what the problem is, our cognitive capacity under load. But what is the fix? What is the solution? What is something that can upregulate our ability to do that? And what are the brain chemicals specifically involved with negative decision making or slower decision making? And what are the brain chemicals involved in upregulating the capacity and ability to make good decisions fast?
One of the things is actually understanding what mental toughness actually is. Like, David Goggins got no idea what mental toughness actually is. Like, he thinks I can suffer more than everyone else is mentally tough. That's mentally weak, actually. That is not having an area of aspect or lots of different strategies to be able to do the same thing, right? So that's not what mental toughness is. What it is can I do what the situation requires? If the answer is yes, that's mental toughness. Can I do it? Yes. Not, can I suffer more than somebody else?
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So
are you saying that, when we look at one side of the equation, which is the David Goggins, just to keep slapping the poor man
guy,
down,
I've never met him,
is to say that actually this is very low emotional capacity, whereas actually the inverse is an athlete with a very high EQ, emotional intelligence, to say that they are more able to self-regulate under a variety of situations. So would you say that an athlete that does very well in training but not in racing is in this camp, the one who can suffer really hard, but as soon as it's an uncontrollable thing because they don't know how to emotionally relate to the situation, gets the negative brain chemical in a race?
Not necessarily. So some of that is it's a lack of pacing control, actually. From what I've seen in the past, I've actually I've worked with a fair few athletes that are amazing trainers, and their race results have been nowhere near where they should be, and it actually is a pacing control piece. They struggle when someone else regulates it. And their ability to be able to calm their nervous system and deliver higher cognitive strategies to be able to then say, I don't need to be the one in control here. I can let someone else do this work, and be okay with, not setting my cadence or not setting my power.
Yeah.
But I have to be under control here because that's going to give me more capacity in the future. And working on that piece, their ability to be able to control their pace. When they can do that, all of a sudden their results happen.
Yeah.
It's really from that part, it's really quite weird. But also some of it is when they get into racing, they've built a schema around racing because they're so locked into how many watts they can do or what they can do or whatever, that, hang on a minute, I'm doing this and I'm still not winning.
Right.
All of a sudden your brain goes into that fight or flight mode again of, oh crap, what am I going to do? Like, how I beat everyone in training. Why are they here? I'm looking around and there's 40 people. Right? They don't have the overall strategies and the emotional awareness, like Nathan was saying, to be able to then go, what other strategies do I have? Then who's going to carry the boats? And I need to be mentally tough, and I just need to, grit my teeth and get through it. So that's one strategy. What else you got?
Yeah, that's a great point. Is there's a powerful psychology difference between people who can be comfortable dictating the pace and, so to speak, inflicting suffering on others versus accepting someone else's pace. Yes. And a good athlete will be able to do both. Yeah. But when you train by yourself a lot, you get into a race situation and other people are dictating the pace, and you have exactly that experience you described. You look down at your power meter or whatever, your heart rate, and you go, oh crap, I'm dying, and there's 70 people in front of me still, what does this mean?
Yeah.
And then your world explodes and you melt down because it doesn't meet some fantasy expectation. But it's easy to, or if you only train with your buddies, or like the old saying goes, if you're the best guy on a ride, you're on the wrong ride, right? So
I'd argue that pretty successfully, I reckon. So
yeah.
like it's again, that's an ego. It's an ego-based decision rather than one that's based on what you actually need as an athlete.
Yes.
So I'm quite sure Nathan, actually, I know Nathan, during a lot of his times would go out and seek people that were better at him at specific things.
Mm-hmm.
It was a big strength of his, was to really engage his strengths, but understand what his weaknesses were, and just go, can I make my floor higher, but also my ceiling higher? Because world-class athletics isn't about like minimizing your weaknesses. That's not what got you to world class. It's actually about really highlighting these really major strengths that you have, and then trying slowly to make the weaknesses less.
Mm.
So your capacity overall, you have a higher chance of being able to deliver the highest possible version of yourself, if that makes sense. And again, that's not taught very much. Everyone goes, "Oh no, I'm terrible at climbing." I'm like, yeah, okay, that's fine, but you're paid €5 million a year to sprint, right? So what happens if you start to climb, you lose your sprint? Which one do you want?
Right.
You want to become a world tour sprinter, or do you want to become a continental level climber? Which one?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The maybe slightly tone deaf way to say that is weaponize your strengths, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've gone off on a tangent there. I apologise.
That was a good tangent.
Yeah.
It's a good tangent, and I think that's actually going to be a point that a lot of people enjoy thinking about in their own writing, because we personally coach some 6'2", Belgian build athletes that they're almost bummed out at the fact that they're not great climbers, but a lot of people have trouble, or I hate to say
try hold their wheel in a crosswind.
So this is the whole point that I always try to get to. But people come and get caught in cycles of self-hate because they think that they need to be an all-rounder as a cyclist. Yep. We very much don't have to be. In fact, I think my career was ultimately quite frustrating because I was a sprinter, but I wasn't a great sprinter. I was a punchy climber, but I wasn't an absolute punchy climber. I could actually go up very long climbs very well, but I couldn't win them. So I was like a jack of all trades, and occasionally a master of a few of them, but not consistently, because I was too rounded as an athlete. And so much of my career, I actually dreamt of having, a sharper sword in one specific thing that I could really target over and over and over again. But my gift was not having that. And it's equally as frustrating as having a gift and actually not having any of the other. So I think that's a really interesting point to bring up, that we actually need to look in the mirror sometimes and actually appreciate, even if you don't have blue eyes and you wanted blue eyes, maybe you've got a beautiful shade of green, and you've got to start looking at the green and saying, that's a very beautiful color, right?
But also, understand that you're doing this because it's supposed to be fun.
Yes.
Right. And look,
it's supposed to be fun. Like, why are you doing an activity that you don't like? Why are you getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning?
It's sport.
And before work, because and then finishing a thing is like, I didn't work out well enough today, and ruins your entire day. Like, it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be fun. That needs to be the biggest determinant of your training. Do I enjoy doing it? Like, there's going to be times where you don't, obviously, but it needs to be the majority of the time you need to enjoy riding bike.
Yes, that's the North Star.
I can't agree more. And it's actually why when I watched Ted Lasso, you've probably seen it, I was like, finally the true expression of what sport at a professional level is actually about is by exploring the concept of self-belief, by loving what you do and actually enjoying the people that you do it with. So you form tribe, you form community. And these calm the nervous system. These create parasympathetic states.
True.
So I keep bugging you, and maybe you're trying to avoid giving away the milk because if you give away the milk, no one will buy the cow. But we keep talking about cognitive strategies. Can you give us some examples of cognitive strategies that people can have as a takeaway from this? I know it's very hard to distill a lifetime of work, and I'm also aware that every athlete is more individual than we have probably atoms on the earth. So can you give us in like cliff notes, almost like cognitive strategies for dummies? What are we looking at?
As in from a pacing point of view? So what part are we looking at first?
I think
because they're all different, by the way.
Pacing seems to be a strong theme, and I think that's one that can relate very much to who we're talking to and who listens to this podcast. People want to get faster on a bike. How do we get faster? Well, pacing is a huge part of it, but then also dealing with stress and pressure in scenarios beyond pacing. And I can let you unpack what those are, but I think those two separate strategies, and maybe Cole, we can suggest a third, but I would like to hear about those two strategies.
Let me do the first one because I'm old and I'll probably forget the second one, so prompt me. So the first one was in pacing, right? Lots of different strategies you can use. One of them's called chunking. It's a psychological strategy, and what it does is you just pretty much just put it down into smaller pieces. So if you have a 20-minute climb, so can you break it down into 5-minute intervals? And then once you get higher, do I need to break it down into smaller ones?
Yep.
Right. And again, keep on doing those duration path outcome analysis of how long do I have to do this for? How many watts do I have to do it for? And what's the outcome if I do it? Right. That duration, it happens in your life all the time anyway. It's just bring it to the forefront of what that is. Secondly is actually really specific belly breathing. And again, that doesn't seem like a cognitive strategy, but what that does goes from cranial nerve number 5 into your vagus nerve and your phrenic nerve. The phrenic nerve is connected to your diaphragm, which also controls heart rate. So if you are cognitively aware of your breathing strategies, it calms your nervous systems down a little bit. It lowers your overall heart rate. It changes heart rate variability, even though that's really not needed in endurance activity, heart rate variability, because it doesn't really matter too much. But what that does is calm down that amygdala, calm down the orbitofrontal cortex, calm down the hypothalamus, to just go, I've got this. I have an understanding that I have the ability to be able to just do this little bit. And even if you need to go down to 5 pedal strokes at a time, there is many world champion time trialists that have been won on counting pedal strokes, believe it or not. And
interesting.
Yeah, and that becomes a metronome as well. So not only that, it takes them away, it disassociates the fact of the pain. But pain's supposed to be there. Pain's not the enemy. Pain's your body saying, I'm actually doing something here. It's giving you an understanding of where you are in space and time. And again, that's the self. So if you have an understanding of what your body's trying to tell you, and then going, you know what, I'm okay with this. I can settle in, and I've got it. That's the pacing strategy. There's just a couple of really simple ones that you can do on a set of 40-20s. You can do it on a set of 3 by 10 minutes. You can do it on any single one. So, okay, what do I need to do? If it's 40-20s, I've got 10 of them. Okay, let me chunk it down into 5, then I'm halfway. And then I just need to do a couple, then I'm almost there.
Yeah.
All right. So from a long climbing perspective, do I need, I just need to get to the 5K to go barrier. Then I need to get to the 3K, 2K, Flamme Rouge, good to go, right? And you'll find that you can actually up the pace at the end more than you think that you can, because your body, your brain will say, I've got a little bit more capacity because I've got this safety mechanism slightly. I've got a little bit more capacity, and I can move forward from that. I can increase my pace later on. Yeah,
Right.
because your
I
brain
think
will always have a little bit extra.
I think another way to illustrate the power of that strategy is if you start at the back of a group in a bike race and you start overtaking people, say in a time trial, you start overtaking people. It's like every single one that you overtake, you get this like feeling of like new oxygen, right? And you start feeling stronger, and I'm more in control of this effort. I've really got this.
That's
And
endorphins. That's your endorphins just coming in,
right.
just kicking in, just going, okay, like
So,
I've done a really good job here. And then your brain
these are the
saying, good.
This is the cascade of brain chemicals that's actually affecting the physiology here and our physiological response to pain, or rather physiological understanding and interpretation of the pain.
Yeah, yeah.
But by breaking down, say, like a climb to get to 5K to go, you did it. Hang on, I got to 5K to go. Same thing as passing someone in a time trial. It's like a cascade of beautiful sensations in the body. And all of a sudden, now you're at 4, and hang on, I'm only a K away from my next success. And it's actually, I think one of the things that I try to teach all of my athletes, or at least tell as a story to anyone that's happy to hear, is that part of elite sport or any performance is defining success and also breaking that down. So it's like, think big, but then start small. Like, what are the small successes that I can enjoy along the way? Because those are the things that actually keep you humming. And I've always seen it from an energetic and a positivity perspective, but then you kind of taught me that there's a second layer to it, and it's actually, it's a biochemical response, actually.
Yes. So there's a lot of things that I've forgotten that we've done a lot of work on, Nathan. To be honest with you, we've been close for a very long time. But yeah, so
I think I've still got a beer in your fridge from a while ago.
2011, actually. It's yeah. So
I think that's expired, mate.
Yeah, it definitely has. But I refuse to let it out of the fridge because he hasn't been back to the house to actually collect it because it's his. But yeah, so it's 2000. It's Corona from 2011, and yeah, he bought a 6-pack of beer when he was at my place years 2011, I think, and he got food poisoning from going fishing with my wife, and he was quite sick and couldn't finish the beer, and and it kind of reminds me of that and gives me a bit of a chuckle. But I now we've gone through 2 moves and it's still there. So
wow. Well done. Well done.
Yeah. I do really weird things like that because it makes me chuckle, and that gives me a sense of satisfaction of my work in general, and friendships.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's funny.
So the second strategy.
What was the other one? For what?
We broke it down. So that's pacing in a nutshell.
Yeah. So what was the second one?
The second one is how do we deal with our emotional reaction in situations that are beyond our practiced scope, which is to say, we've done all these efforts in training, but now there's noise. There's a helicopter above us. There was a split in the bunch, and before the 20-minute climb, I actually had to do a 5-minute effort with my team to come back. Temperature's higher than normal. And now let's put ourselves in the shoes of a world tour rider. Now Ineos is on the front driving it, trying to break the pace. How do I deal with that situation?
Again, so the first thing is chunk. Just go smaller sections. What do I need to do to get me? So what position do I need to be in any time frame whatever time frame it needs to be? Right. So if I have 15 or 8 minutes or whatever to get to the bottom of a climb, and I need to be in the first 20, then what do I need to do to be able to do that? Literally make that decision making into that smaller section, right? So how do I don't even worry about the 20 minutes afterwards or the next or the 3 calls that you've got to do after it, because that's future you problem. So again, bringing it down smaller, just going, okay, what position do I need to be? And do I have the capability to be able to do that? Yes, no. And if you start getting that emotional response or the fight or flight response, ask yourself the reason why. Why do I feel this way? Understand where you are in space and time and say to yourself, okay, so this, thank you very much, brain, but for the little bit of scaredness and preparing me to be able to do what a larger effort than I think that I can, right? I've done this before. I've done it in training. And even if I haven't done it before, let's just give it a go. Because I'm not going to die wondering. Yeah?
Yeah.
So understand why your brain is actually delivering the thought processes that it is, and why your body is then saying to you whatever it's saying. If you're calm and controlled, again, you can actually find yourself with a higher capacity to be able to do whatever you can. It makes muscles more efficient. It makes oxygen delivery far more efficient too, because if you're got your face all scrunched up like they used to in the 1980s, like in pain faces, the oxygen delivery is
Kumfacha?
So So anyway, we'll leave that one. But yeah. So if how do I control and calm myself to be able to deliver whatever I need to do in the future? Secondly, is there somebody else that I know that's around me that's really good at a set of skills that I'm not good at? Yeah. So from I don't know, if Ineos is driving on the front, more than likely there'll be someone's. I'm trying to be really nice here. Someone's Grand Tour specialist sitting at the back because they don't like to be in the bunch. So there will be a team that's coming to the back to grab that person because they've been yelling at him all day for being at the back. And do I need to just jump on their train to get to where I need to be? And if we're doing it from an amateur point of view, is there someone that you always race that you know that is really good at the specific skill that you need to deliver in the next 5 to 10 minutes? And if there is, how do I get to him or her? Yeah. So and that takes no cognitive capacity whatsoever. That is an understanding of overall pacing in general.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, something you just brought up, asking yourself, why am I having this reaction?
Yeah.
This, I'm sitting next to somebody who's, filled with a lot of scientific knowledge, but is also, not embarrassed to admit that he's very holistic kind of hippie vibe as well. And it reminded me of the concept of, the highest form of consciousness is when you can actually almost have an out-of-body experience and actually ask yourself, how would I react to this? And why am I reacting like so?
Very similar concept.
What's your thoughts
with
on
conscious
that?
thought? But with conscious thought. Yeah, very similar concept with conscious thought. Yeah, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's how I think about this is something that I learned from Michael Holt, one of my teachers. The saying he uses is, there are 0.3 of a second before the warriors storm the gate. Meaning an event happens in real life, you get a flat tire, it starts to hail, you fall down in a corner, someone crashes in front of you, whatever it is, or you start to get dropped, and there's that tiny, tiny sliver of time between that event and when you react to that event.
Yes.
And the more presence we bring into a situation, the more centered we are going into any given situation, the more we can expand that time gap, conceptually.
Yep.
And
yep.
we can witness
it. Not conceptual. You can do it.
You can't do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we can, when we witness that gap without attachment, without reactivity, and we begin to build distance between the reaction and the event, then the more practiced you are at that, the better you become at being non-reactive, right?
Yes.
Which is really just Buddhist philosophy. It's like, oh,
And at the heart of self-regulation in general.
yes,
right? So
yes,
so if you look at a 3-year-old child who doesn't understand their emotions and why they're feeling the way they're feeling, their reaction is going to always be one that is heightened, and you won't know what that is, right? Exactly. Unless they have an understanding of why and how their emotions is, and they get that self-regulation piece and self-awareness piece over time, it's a learned skill, then they elongate, or some people struggle with it still over time, but you have the ability to be able to elongate.
yeah,
And that's literally because those neural pathways are becoming strengthened and honed in that self-regulation piece in general.
yes.
Right? So
that's a key point. That's a key point.
Yeah.
I think people mistakenly assume that you made me do this because you dropped the milk on the floor, so you made me get angry. They assume there's a causality between an external event and our reaction. They haven't actually learned that we can separate that time.
Yeah. So one of the things, not just the strip task that we used to do with Nathan, was other tasks like Tower of London tasks and stuff, to actually make him like quite angry, and to be and to actually learn to be able to regulate those emotions when he's heightened, especially above LT2, because it gets shut off really quickly as one of the mammalian responses, that anything above LT2, that decision making and emotion based decision making happens really fast and quickly.
Yep.
So what we used to do, and I've had a few athletes throw mobile phones off sides of roads because they were that angry of trying to do something, which is exactly what you want them to do, not throw it off. But yeah, so what we were trying to do there was actually elongate that space.
Yeah, interesting.
Because their first initial reaction was anger or fight or whatever, all of the wrong responses. Yeah.
And the thing that I learned is a physiological cue to find calm in that frustration. And I can tell you it was really frustrating, because it does something where you try to play these brain games immediately after you've hopped off one of the hardest minute efforts you've ever done. You try to play this brain game, and it threatens your ego of intelligence, because you start to realize that right now I'm actually stupid and I can't tell the difference between a writing utensil and a tool, and I'm getting it wrong over and over. And I learned there's a physiological cue that worked for me, which also comes back to what we were talking about, cranial nerve 5 to the vagus nerve, is just take a breath and then act.
Yeah.
And that simple breath was the act of elongating your time to reaction.
Right. Yeah.
And you start to realize that you actually can bend time. And I think for me, that was something that changed my career. And, I started to bring it onto the bike, which was, I used to be very impulsive when there were attacks. And I started to learn, before I jump, just take a breath. And if within that time, you can realize, one, you've elongated time. Oh, there's actually other guys already jumping across. I can follow into their wheels. I don't need to blow myself up. And you'd start to realize that if at the end of that breath, there were no reasons not to go, that was time to go. And this is what we kind of refer to as flight mode. I actually went into intuition as opposed to rational logic. And for me, that was, one of the times that I think it was the most clear to me was, when I was at my best performance at Amstel Gold. A group had gone up the road earlier on the climb, and I kept thinking, just take more breaths, take more breaths. Is this the race moment? Is this the race moment? And then without consciously thinking, after moments of breathing, my body just acted, and I managed to jump across clear-minded, and I got to the group, and that was the group that we were racing for the victory. So for me, there's there is a real world application to it on the bike, but the bike is a metaphor for life. Sporting endeavors are a metaphor for life. And I can tell you, having a daughter, I use this more now than ever. You know, she's 4.5. It's a very interesting age where they start to be able to argue with a lot of logic, and you just have to sit there and breathe, and instead of getting angry at the scenario, be the adult in the room. And I think this also comes to the archetype of transitioning from the child to the adult, and being able to control these emotions and reactions rather to a situation by elongating time through techniques is something that is worth practicing, and it's worth learning. And you know, I have to thank you for teaching me that, and also Colby in different ways through meditation and teaching me how to actually look inward at different times and to actually slow myself down so that I can actually kind of even stare my ego in the face and say, you know, why was I acting like that? Was that the best pathway? Were there better ways? And I think, you know, for me, you know, I feel like I'm sitting next to two giants of thought, and you know, two people that have been mentors in my life. So, you know, thank you to both of you. But I think the point of why I really wanted to get you onto this podcast today was so that we can share some of these stories, talk about the science, talk about some of the scientific principles that actually are hard to explain because maybe we're not there yet. So I guess to sign off from the podcast, I would like to say before we can all have our closing words is that I think we're in a very exciting time in science at the moment, because it's starting to open its eyes or gaze to elements that aren't as simple to measure, and starting to look at different mechanisms, and starting to actually be more holistic, looking at things as a whole. So I will say thank you from my side, but please feel free for both of you to share any thoughts before we head off.
Oh, sorry, Colby. Thanks, Nathan. I've really enjoyed this. I think there's a really big opportunity at the moment to be able to control and to be able to deliver really high quality coaching and high quality information in regards to how the brain works with the nervous system to produce performance. And it's really it's the next. I think it's the next frontier. That's my true belief is the next frontier, and hopefully over time that will become a more regular occurrence. So, yeah.
Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. Two takeaways I want to just impress upon the audience, perhaps, that might be useful that I've gathered from our conversation. One is that breath can be a window into helping us regulate the nervous system, right? As you mentioned.
Yeah.
I think that's a super important North Star for people. And then the second is a sentence you said very early in our conversation, which really caught my ear, which was, everything is placebo. I think that's a fascinating sentence. There's a lot in there. There's a lot to unpack. So I'd love to unpack that with you in the future, perhaps a bit more, because I think there's a lot in that. And that's non-trivial is how I would think about that, especially in the face of a culture and a sport that is so focused on data and the ostensible certainty of data, right? People want certainty, and they don't like things like placebo or things with fuzzy boundaries or things that you can't necessarily count and put in a pile or enter into a spreadsheet. But that's the way a lot of the universe is. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think for me, you know, this has also been really fun, but we talk a lot, right? And like I said at the start of the pod, one of the purposes is to basically dismantle and disprove this alpha bro, David Goggins, you know, push through the pain. Pain is the whole purpose kind of mentality. You shared with me, which I think might be a beautiful way for us to actually say goodbye. You shared with me the last line of a book or a publication that you're working on at the moment. And I think it summarizes exactly why this alpha bro science sucks?
So I've written, or I'm co-writing a neuroscience of sport textbook. It's a first year subject. And the last line of it is, ultimately, the direction of travel is towards a fully integrated model where cognition, emotion, and physiology are treated as one system. The future of performance will be defined less by who can tolerate the most physical load and more by who can maintain the most efficient and adaptable brain-body state under pressure. That's the line. So
We probably didn't need to do a podcast. We probably could have just started with that and signed off.
but yeah, I've really enjoyed this. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, thanks for sharing your wisdom with us and everyone that listens to the Cycling Performance Podcast. Professor David Spindler, or Caddy, as I've known you throughout my whole life, thank you very much for your time. And we look forward to seeing what your next work is all about.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into the Cycling Performance Podcast. This podcast is produced by myself, Nathan Haas, and Colby Pierce in association with EF Education and Team EF Coaching, a world leader in cycling coaching for all ages, abilities, and goals. Our world-class team of coaches have won over 100 national titles across all disciplines of cycling, competed in 47 Grand Tours with victories in all 3 and 6 Olympic Games. So it's our goal to distill our experiences to bring you the most cutting-edge approach to cycling to achieve your goals, dreams, and aspirations in our beautiful sport. If you'd like to learn more about Team EF Coaching, find us on Instagram, LinkedIn, or at our website, teamefcoaching.com. We would like to thank Peridur ap Gwyneth from Pendulum for the energetic theme music, and to Ross Hallard, our wonderful editor. Ride in flow, space monkeys.